Councilmember Murillo.
Here.
All right. I don't see any as well. So minutes are approved. Any announcements?
I have an announcement. This
Okay,
is regarding Brian Green, and I believe Brian is on today. Brian has been acting as our manager of open space and natural resources for some time now, and we've made it official. Brian has accepted our offer to be our permanent manager of open space and natural resources. So congratulations go out to Brian.
Thank you, Brooke.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yep, congratulations.
Thank you all very much. Excited. Yep.
All right, any other announcements from anyone? All right, seeing none, we'll go on to the first agenda item, which is 4A, our parks, our places, a plan for Aurora's parks, recreation, and open space.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan French. I am a project manager with the planning, design, and construction team within Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. Today, I'll be sharing with you an update to Our Parks, Our Places, a plan for Aurora's Parks, Recreation, and Open Space, which is a master plan document that is being prepared for our department. Unable to join me today is Michelle Teller. She was the other project manager assigned to the project. But she's at a planning meeting today. So today's agenda, we're looking to provide a high-level overview of the project and its accomplishments to date, provide some key upcoming dates for you all, and a look ahead to the upcoming approval process set to begin in 2024. Next slide, please. So Our Parks, Our Places, the purpose of this project in creating a master plan is a long-range vision for Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department for the next 5 to 10 years. These are very standard types of documents for a department to have that serve sort of as a vision document for the future. We created this project with 5 key objectives built from the Aurora Places Comprehensive Plan, including community connections, equitable access, health and safety, sustainable growth, and operational efficiencies. Next slide, please. The project is just about to wrap up here in the next few weeks. The project was extended to approximately 18 months, and we are just weeks away from wrapping up. So we're very excited to be here and share some of this information with you all today, because the next time that we come to you, we hope that it's for the formal approval of the plan. Next slide, please. So as I had stated, the department aims to begin the approval process in early 2024. The approved document will serve as the guiding document for Parks, Recreation, Open Spaces Department, and sets the stage for subsequent studies such as a departmental strategic plan. Additionally, the plan identifies key performance indicators to which pros will be able to measure successes and progress to the goals outlined in the document in a consistent and transparent manner. This will require advisory recommendation to amend the Aurora Comprehensive Plan to include this plan by reference. Next slide, please. So phase 1, we started out with discovery. Discovery was an opportunity to critically analyze the current pro system and engage with the public surrounding today's use and perspectives of pro sites as they exist today. Next slide, please. This analysis created a baseline understanding of the pro system. It looked at some of the other documents that we frequently reference, including county master plans, vision plans for things like the Highline Canal Conservancy and other partners like Mile High Flood District, Dr. Cog, and many of the partners that we work with on a regular basis. Next slide, please. Public engagement happened throughout the entirety of this project, but in phase one, comments from the community allowed the identified key objectives that I spoke to earlier to evolve into 6 guiding principles, which were set to become the overarching themes for all recommendations included in the plan. So these themes or these principles include meeting the evolving needs of the community as we continue to grow, strengthen connectivity to PRO's assets to make sure residents across the city have access to all of the PRO's parks, recreation, open space, special events, recreation centers, and so on. Serve as stewards to our environment. It's no secret that PRO's manages a lot of acreage, and it's very important that these are key habitats. These are protection from flood mitigation, corridors, habitat travel corridors, or migration corridors rather, and just have a lot of impacts on the environment. Providing opportunities for lifelong education. So we believe PRO's is uniquely positioned to provide education to a variety of groups and individuals across the city to kind of pique interest in what PRO's may have to offer. This includes things from basic swimming lessons all the way up to naturalist programs. So proactively invest in the present and the future. We heard a lot of people really wanting investment in the current system they have today. So we hope to balance sort of existing funding and how we manage the system today, but also knowing that Aurora continues to grow, we must plan for the future as well. And then providing welcoming and safe spaces. We intend to create spaces that everyone can feel safe and can feel welcome as they enter our rec centers or any of our parks and open space and the use of our trails across the system. Next slide, please. Parks and open space is also very interesting in its ability to add additional value to surrounding properties. James Lima Planning and Design was a subconsultant for our team, and they provided a very interesting analysis as to the value capture of properties located within a certain radius. So within 600 feet of a park or open space property, it's estimated that there's a 20% premium in real estate value. And this continues outward up to a quarter mile, where we can see up to a 10% increase in value. So I think as we continue to work with partners like the counties of Arapahoe and Adams County, it's really important that we understand the value of the land and also the adjacent properties of what PROs can offer to adjacent property values. Next slide, please. Armed with the data from phase one, we entered into phase two, which was a gaps and needs assessment. Next slide, please. One of the major themes identified in phase one was the need for equity-based approach to decision-making. We often faced questions from residents about parks, open space, rec centers, and events nearest their homes. So the team then realized the need for an equitable approach for future decision-making that could be easily articulated back to the community. This approach will allow PROs to make data-informed decisions when it comes to future allocation of PROs resources in a more transparent and impactful way. Next slide, please. So the goal of phase two was to really understand how the PROs system currently exists within Aurora today, using real data from things like the census and information we collected through surveys and engagement with the public. So what you see here on the right is sort of a final map that was created with, I'll go into it a little bit more, but it was created with just a trove of information from census data, like I said, to what we heard from the public, to where we currently have specific types of amenities. And we're starting to identify the neighborhoods across the city which have the greatest need for investment of PRO's resources. Next slide, please. So essentially that map was created using 3 key indicators. So density, we looked at where the most residents lived. We looked at demographic vulnerability, which is the social vulnerability index as defined by the census, plus some additional health indicators such as asthma rates and childhood obesity rates. And then lastly, we factor in park acreage and the amenities that are offered in an area. So when we combine these 3 maps in particular, that's how we come to the highest need areas across the city in that final map. Next slide, please. Some additional analysis that that took place with the project was tree equity analysis, trying to understand the urban canopy. So as you all likely know by now, this was really important in being awarded some of the additional funds from the federal government for some of the tree grant that PRO's went after recently and was awarded. We also looked at map-based community feedback. So we tried to map through digital processes where we heard both positive and negative comments, whether these were collected at in-person events, whether this was through survey. We tried to put these on a map so we truly understood where these comments were coming from. We also looked at program seasonality. We offer almost 1,100 programs per year as a department, and we wanted to look at, which ones were outdoor, indoor, and what time of year these programs were offering or were offered, so we can better make informed decisions for the future of programming for PROs. And then we also looked at the ecological connectivity, so how our spaces work together to create an ecological system, habitat corridors, and so on. Next slide, please. So touching on engagement. So as I had indicated, engagement was a huge part of this process from day one. We had surveys for both phase 1 and phase 2 with a little over 1,500 responses. We're up to 20 in-person engagement events or pop-up events. And actually, recently, we just updated this last number. We're up to over 17,000 touch points with the community. So we really wanted to make sure we heard the voices of the community today. Next slide, please. Once we were finished with the gaps and needs assessment, we wanted to take all of that information and start refining some of these ideas. Next slide, please. So in phase 3, there were sort of 2 goals here. We wanted to create some strategies and recommendations as to future goals of the department, and then also create some implementation and action steps that provide the framework for how we can achieve some of these strategies and recommendations. Next slide, please. Running concurrently with this project was a dog park study. We imagined this study to be a part of the master plan project, but it has since sort of been pulled out to be an independent study. And the reason for that is we are hoping there are more design standards and recommendations that are very specific. And we want to allow these to be able to change over time, and rather than constantly going back and trying to amend the comprehensive plan with an update to the PRO's master plan, delivering this as a separate study will allow us to make those changes as this idea of dog parks continues to grow and change over time. But we had multiple engagement events for dog parks, specifically a couple photos of there with my dog and meeting the community up at Stanley Marketplace to ask them, what is their preference? What do they like to see? And how important are dog parks across Aurora? Next slide, please. There was a little bit less engagement in phase 3. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to create something that sort of teased what this plan was going to be and inform the public today, but also create something that we can use to show people and lead people back to this plan in the future. So we created an engagement pamphlet that provides the highlights of the planning process and resources, and highlights the 6 guiding principles associated with the strategies and goals. These will continue to be distributed long after the project. We look at this as just sort of a teaser for those who may not know what a master plan is or where to find one. Hopefully they can pick one of these up at something like a rec center or a library and get a little bit of information, and hopefully if we pique their interest enough, we'll get them to the website so they can actually read the plan and understand it. Next slide, please. So that leads us up to where we are today with phase 4, confirmation, or the formal drafting of the master plan. So next slide, please. So this phase prepares the final master plan documents, ensuring that we have captured all of the data and everything that we've heard, and just a lot of back and forth processes, making sure that everyone can lay eyes on it, everyone understands that their voice was heard. With over 17,000 touch points in the community, we want to make sure that we truly capture all of those voices in this project. So by continually sharing out information as things are developed, we get that confirmation that what we have done and what we're striving to set forward truly answer some of the questions and the needs that the community had. Next slide, please. Some upcoming dates for you all. So we are set to receive a draft here today, actually, of the full master plan. And if everything goes according to plan, the draft will be posted 10/2 through 10/16 for public review and comment. And pro staff will send a reminder to all boards, commissions about this being posted publicly. We'll go through all of the channels that we have and connections that we have made through this project to let everyone know this is out here. Please take a look at it. Please give us your comments and your feedback, because this is sort of our last chance to make some changes before we seek approvals. Approvals are anticipated in January or February of 2024, and there on screen, you see the list of approvals that we will be going through before this is formally adopted for the department. Next slide, please. So with that, I thank everyone for their time and open it up if there are any questions.
Thank you, Ryan. Councilmember Murillo, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chair Medina, and thank you for the presentation, Ryan. Yeah, a couple of comments and a question. So I'm happy to see that density is a component. I know that wasn't always the case, and especially in Ward 1, where we're the most dense area, seeing some accounting for the density of the area in our parks and planning process. So happy to see that. I'm also happy to see the dog park study, which was something that we pushed for a few years ago. And I totally understand the intention or pulling the study out. I guess I just would ask, like, does that in any way deprioritize the dog park study, like that it doesn't live in this larger master document?
No, by no means does it, mean that it doesn't take any additional priority. It'll be delivered on the same timeline as this document here, and we'll go through similar approval processes. It just does not, like I had sort of stated, if we tie it to the comprehensive plan, if there's ever a change that's needed, it's a little bit more of a lengthy change. Whereas if it lives as a departmental study, we can change it as necessary with director approval, and then just going through this committee and Parks and Rec Advisory Board for some. And that's, again, simply because we're looking for very specific design recommendations. You know, what surfacing should be there, what types of fences, how large should they be, how many parking spaces do we need for an average size dog park. So those very specific type of recommendations, we felt it more appropriate to be delivered in a subsequent study.
Okay, and I guess a follow-up is there clarity that that dog park study is affiliated with this larger piece of legislation, if you will? Is there like a connection in that way?
Absolutely. All of these studies that are identified for future, including the strategic plan and the dog park study, are identified in the strategies and recommendations actually within the plan.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Marcano.
Thank you, Councilmember Medina. So first, Ryan, I just want to say thank you for presenting on this. I'm really excited about what I'm seeing here. I do have a couple of comments and a question as well, but I'll start with my question first, and that is, I was present at one of the community feedback events, and one of the very specific asks I made for infrastructure was to connect Tierra Park to the West Tollgate Creek trails. So that would basically be a connection from the park north of Chambers self-storage and across Chambers, kind of utilizing, I think, the power line trail that we have back there. Because you can actually look at that area using Google Earth, and you can see the desired trails that are pretty well worn in. So I guess my specific question to you is, did that make the cut?
So I will say that this plan did not go into that level of specificity.
Gotcha. All right. Well, hopefully that will be included. And I guess for my comments, I'm really, really happy to see the demographic vulnerability factored into this, as well as the tree equity, for various parts of the city. I like that we're utilizing, a lot of these gaps in our city, especially when it comes to resources. It's kind of like a basis for, planning our facilities into the future. So I think y'all are on the right track. And I'm also very excited to see the dog park conversation included here as well. So remember, that was, I think, Councilor Murillo, myself, and Hiltz a couple of years back. So it's happening. Thanks.
All right, I'll be the last one. So yeah, couple of questions, couple of comments as well. As far as the community connections, I saw that on your pamphlet you had a few languages on there. Was there any effort to get any of that information to some of the nonprofits who work with a lot of those immigrant refugee populations?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. So yes, throughout this project, just about every piece of information we put out was in the top 6 languages in Aurora, as identified by the Language Access Plan through the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs. And we continued to use people like Minsu with the city to reach out to those nonprofits and make those connections. So we did have a lot of direct conversation, including some even focus groups from our consultant team that sat down with some of the immigrant and refugee population and some of the affiliated groups to provide input in that went into this plan.
Okay. Yeah, and I just think that, and looking at your kind of your map where you had how many people participated, I noticed in Ward 1 and my ward, you had 79 and 59. And I was just wondering, out of those, did you have any, like how many were any of these communities, the immigrant refugee population? Just because if you need some of that, I'm one of those that can help you connect to those populations. If you don't, just because I sit on a lot of boards and I'm in those communities quite a bit. So especially in my ward as well. So I just want to make sure that we get enough representation, from those communities to give their input.
Yeah, absolutely. And the numbers that you saw on the screen there, those were the survey responses. So those were paper or digital survey responses. So not included there were some of the discussions, in-person events, focus groups that were held. So those numbers were specific to the survey. I do certainly feel like we attempted to reach out to a lot of those groups and make sure that those voices were heard through this process. But we certainly welcome continued engagement. I think that's just one thing that PROS is really excited for is, continuing to foster that relationship and build those relationships across the city now that we've sort of established them through this project.
And then my last one is just, could you tell me any of the comments you said you got from community around what were positive things they liked and what were some negative things they didn't like?
I guess at a high level, I can certainly provide some additional information to you later. But at sort of a high level, what we heard was actually just the amount of parks and open space that we had. Most residents felt like there was a park or open space near their home that was easily accessible. We found in the surveys that most of the respondents visited a park or an open space at least weekly. So we really saw a lot of people really embrace what parks and open space offers as an amenity to residents. Some of the negative things that we heard is obviously, concerns about, the safety, cleanliness, graffiti, some of the other, day-to-day things that our operations staff must deal with. And we know those are continued issues, but we continue to try to provide resources in the correct areas and in the correct ways to make sure that everyone does feel welcome in these places and does feel safe in these spaces as well.
That concludes it for me. Any other comments from any other committee members? If not,
Chair Medina, just one more from me.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make you aware, if you weren't, the tree canopy component reminded me of a group that is offering to plant up to 3 trees, any kind of tree essentially, in the Ward 1 area for residents. So I don't know if you were already aware of that, but in terms of like supporting, like, if that's work already being done, if there's some residents that perhaps y'all could connect them to that might support a better tree canopy, 2 birds, 1 stone kind of situation.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that information. I think I see John Wazlowski on the call. He's the manager of Parks and Forestry and can probably speak to some of the forestry stuff coming up a little bit better than I can.
go ahead, John.
Am I here? Okay, there we go. So we're aware of the group. We support what they're doing. Yeah, and if there's any way that from a council member perspective, you guys could push it, more trees planted are better. And also just push the fact that, we as a forestry group give away free trees too, but they are limited to the right of way. So the more the better. So we're on board with that program.
Have you connected with them in terms of residents that might be a good fit for their program? I wonder.
I know that my staff have talked to them. I'll have to get a little bit more information, Councilmember Murillo, on that, and I can follow up if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there's a great synergy and great opportunity that I wouldn't want us to miss out on. And, I know they're doing their own marketing efforts, but doesn't necessarily mean they're going to reach everyone that might be a really great candidate for just additional resource. And obviously it serves our efforts. So I feel like we have a vested interest in their success as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, to have that synergy with the traction that they're getting, I think that's a good point. So we'll definitely reach out and strengthen the relationship and try to use any type of connections that they have to help with their program and our program as well.
So thank you, John.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ryan, for the presentation. Thank you, pros, for what you all do. We appreciate it and look forward to bringing this plan and moving it forward. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Oh, moving on to the next one, which is the small solar system facilities, reduced setback resolution.
Thank you, Councilmember Medina. I will go ahead and introduce the item, and then I want to introduce a couple guests that are on the line as well. This item is a resolution expressing City Council support for reduced Arapahoe County setbacks for a future small solar system facility adjacent to the Plains Conservation Center. The Arapahoe County Land Development Code guides the permitting and management of installations and operations of small solar system facilities in unincorporated Arapahoe County. The county code requires a 2,000-foot setback in certain areas, which includes this particular area around Plains Conservation Center. Councilmember Steve Sundberg, who is on the call, is the item sponsor and is available for comment. And also we have Nicole Affleck, the project developer for US Solar, and she's available to respond to questions, and she also can give a presentation if you so desire. I'm not sure if Steve, Councilmember
Yes.
would like to offer some comments.
Yes, thanks, Brooke. Chair Medina, thank you for having us today. Council members Murillo and Marcano, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Wanted to briefly tell you about two community solar garden opportunities on two slivers of land bordered to the east by Dad's landfill in the Superfund site, Lowry, and to the east partly by Plains Conservation Center. These two areas of land are not viable for traditional development, but ideal for a solar garden. Input was taken from open space in consideration of animal corridors and environmental concerns. And these solar gardens will benefit folks of lower income with energy, clean energy. But as Brooke indicated, there is a hurdle with Arapahoe County with a fairly new rule and restriction that 2,000 feet needs to take place from an outdoor activity center, which would be classified as the Plains Conservation Center, an outdoor activity center. So we're hoping to approve a city resolution in support of these projects as currently designed without a 2,000-foot setback. So then Arapahoe County would give their blessing on the project to move it forward. And I believe we can introduce Nicole Affleck from US Solar to tell us a little bit more about it.
Sure. Morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. Like Councilmember Sundberg said, my name is Nicole Affleck. I'm a project developer with a company called US Solar. I'm just a little bit north of y'all. I'm in Denver right now. So I do have a presentation on these projects. I can go through that quickly. I'm also happy to just answer any questions that you have. But both Brooke and Councilmember Sundberg explained the situation pretty well. But maybe I'll just go through this presentation quickly. Great. So starting off, I'll just explain quickly who US Solar is. We develop, own, and operate what are called community solar gardens in markets across the country. I'm based in Denver, and many of our other team members are here as well. We hold our projects for the long term, unlike many other developers. So we will be responsible for these projects for their entire life. And with all of our projects, but particularly with these projects, which we call the Lowry projects, because they're on land owned by the Lowry Trust, we really intend to create a public good using private investment, which includes positive environmental impact, reliable and clean electricity that will be delivered locally to the city of Aurora and Arapahoe County, and particularly create lots of different types of benefits, which I'll get into on the next slide. And importantly to this discussion, we design our projects to be integrated within the sort of feel of the local community. And I know that's important for this conversation. So on the next slide, you can see sort of where these projects are, which it's a very unique location for a solar project. You can see the city of Aurora boundary is that dotted sort of gray line. So we're just to the west, just to the east of city boundaries in unincorporated Arapahoe County. We're bordering the Plains Conservation Center to the west, and then both the Denver Arapahoe disposal site and the Lowry landfill, like Councilmember Sundberg said. You can also see that these projects will serve as sort of a border between growing suburban development in the city of Aurora and those two disposal sites. So they're a very uniquely situated project. They are also located in a place that Xcel Energy identified as in need of additional electricity generation. Like Councilmember Sundberg said, most traditional development is actually prohibited on this land because it's so close to the Lowry Superfund and the Denver Arapahoe disposal site. But we worked with the Conservation District, the Arapahoe Conservation District, to specifically allow solar projects according to their stipulations. So these projects, there are actually 6 total projects that will be here, totaling 30 megawatts AC. And I can explain sort of what that number means if you don't live and breathe megawatts like I do every day. But on the next slide, there's sort of a summary of the benefits that these projects will provide. So these community solar projects offer bill credits. I can get into the structure of that kind of program in more detail. It's a little bit complicated, but these projects are going to donate bill credits to low-income Xcel Energy customers for free. So over their 40-year lifetime, that will total over $74 million in electricity savings to low-income Xcel customers. 30 megawatts is about enough electricity to power 6,000 homes per year. And because these projects connect to the distribution system, those will be local homes. The power will be distributed to local homes. Like I said, they serve as a buffer property between growing residential development and the landfill and the disposal site. These projects will contribute over $500,000 to local nonprofits, the biggest donation being to the workforce development program called Ready to Work Aurora. They will contribute hundreds of thousands of dollars in property taxes annually. And we, US Solar, will be funding millions of dollars to grid upgrades that will improve safety and resilience of the electricity grid in the area. They will not produce any noise, dust, odor, glare, traffic, or light once they're built. And like I mentioned at the top of the presentation, we really intend to match the existing community character. And the way that that's done here is the entire project site will be planted with native drought-resistant vegetation. We'll use an agricultural style fence around the project so that it sort of matches the kind of agricultural feel of the area. And the panels themselves are actually fairly short. They move throughout the day. They're on what are called single axis trackers, but at their maximum height, they're never taller than 8 feet. The next 3 slides have some pictures of operational sites. These are in Minnesota. Many of our projects are in Minnesota. But these are just sort of to give you a visual idea of what I mean when I talk about the visual characteristics of the site. So you can just sort of scroll through these next few slides here. These are all about 1 megawatt in size, but you can see they sort of they don't stick out as much as the very, very large projects do. And the vegetation is intended to blend with sort of the surrounding area. So getting into sort of the meat of the request here, as Councilmember Sundberg described, during sort of the middle of the permitting process for these projects, and as mentioned before, we're permitting with the county of Arapahoe, because these are in unincorporated Arapahoe County. The county code was changed, which will require that solar projects like these are set back 2,000 feet from what they're calling designated outside activity areas, which include the Plains Conservation Center, even though that is a city-owned property. So the visual to the right is hopefully not too confusing. The blue parcels are our projects. And then the red and yellow are the two pieces of the conservation center that are considered this designated outside activity area. And then the red line is 2,000 feet around the red parcel, and the yellow line is 2,000 feet around the yellow parcel. So you can see that yellow line like really cuts into the western parcel of our projects pretty severely. It would probably result in the termination of both projects that are on that parcel. One of those projects includes the largest donation to the Ready to Work Aurora nonprofit, and that donation is contingent upon that project being built. So interestingly, the county is trying to protect city property by imposing this 2,000-foot setback on it. But in the name of doing so, it will actually prohibit a lot of the benefits from flowing to city residents and to the city itself. So you can move to the next slide here. Our request, which Councilmember Sundberg has been such a wonderful champion of, is approval of a city resolution that would support the reduced setbacks for these projects. The setback that is designed currently as the projects are is about 650 feet. So it's less than the 2,000 feet, but it is still a very healthy setback from an area that I'm sure you all want to protect. The county and the reason why we're asking for approval for a resolution is because the county has also been very helpful with this and making sure there's a way forward for these projects. And they're opening up a variance process essentially where a project or a company like us can say, well, we understand that this is the requirement, but we're seeking a variance. And because the city owns the property that the county is intending to protect, we think that explicit approval from the city will go a long way in supporting our request. We expect to begin applying for this variance in late October. It's actually not been approved as a mechanism quite yet. It still has to go before the Board of County Commissioners in a couple of weeks. So that's sort of a summary of the projects and where they stand and what we're asking for. And I'll just kind of sum it up by saying, I really see community solar gardens like these as one form of open space. They really protect the local environment. We're going to plant native, drought-resistant, very low-lying vegetation that will, support the soil and support local pollinator species that will, therefore support agricultural activities in the area. And I think the benefits of these projects really speak for themselves. They're going to do a lot of good for the city and for the county. So appreciate your attention here and happy to answer any questions that folks have.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Councilmember Sundberg. Councilmember Murillo, any questions?
Have y'all reached out to the county at this point?
Yeah, we're in very close contact with the county, and they've actually been really supportive of our situation here. We're in close contact with the planning team there, as well as all of the different agencies that review our projects have been reviewed by the county, and so they're being reviewed by all different county agencies, and we're in close contact with them.
And have you connected with the county commissioners, who I believe would make the ultimate decision?
I'm just sort of starting to get in touch with them. Yeah, I'm in touch with Commissioner Baker, who represents the district where these projects are.
Okay, so I guess I'm confused why this feels premature a little bit. We haven't even reached out to the counties. Maybe Councilmember Sundberg, you could opine on that.
Let's see, Commissioner Baker is getting back to me on how old this restriction is, but yeah, we're in contact with him, and I believe he's generally supportive of it.
I guess, so you don't think it's premature to be pushing this forward before connecting with the rest of the county commissioners? Because I'm glad you're connecting at least with the commissioner, whose district this is in, but I'm curious a little bit on the timing.
Nicole and her team have been in close contact with the correct departments in the county. And to move this ultimately forward, we need the city of Aurora's blessing to have a variance on these setbacks. So we are taking this step to ultimately move things forward, because Arapahoe County is going to look to the city to see if this is a problem on our side. And we want to just hopefully come together as a city council, as a city, to approve it as an initial step, or required step in the whole process.
Any other questions, Councilmember Murillo?
No, I don't know if I feel like a resolution is necessary if the folks who are doing the project are in close contact with staff, and if our staff is supportive. But obviously it's up to Councilmember Sundberg and his prerogative if he wants to bring it forward either way. But thanks for go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. We had discussed among staff if, for example, with Janine Rudstadt, if a simple letter of support would suffice, but we did choose a resolution to make it seem more official. But I suppose a simple letter could be an option too. But I wanted to run this through the chain, the correct sequence of departments, authorities. I was, starting out with the Open Space Committee, Brian Green, and then to your committee, and then hopefully to study session, and then a regular meeting. And I do believe there is a time deadline of November that a decision needs to be made. And Nicole could reflect on that.
Sure. Yeah, the timeline piece here is a little bit tricky. There is a required date that the projects must be operational according to Xcel Energy based on their interconnection timeline. And this additional permitting step is sort of challenging our ability to meet that. So we're trying to be proactive in working with the city and not wait until the variance process has been approved by the county before working with you all, because like Councilmember Sundberg said, there are many people we wanted to involve in this, and want to make sure that everyone gets to express questions and considerations as we move it through approval. So yeah, that's exactly right. We're working against sort of a construction clock with these projects to be able to turn them on when Xcel needs the power.
Any other questions, Councilmember Murillo?
No more questions.
Okay, Councilmember Marcano.
Thank you, Councilmember Medina, and thank you, Steve and Nicole, for the presentation. I'm supportive of this, whether it's a letter or a resolution. I don't know if that really makes that much of a difference. But no, I think this is a really great use of that space that otherwise would be, well, unutilized. So, and I don't think it's going to cause any issues for the Plains Conservation Center. So I'm happy to see this.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick question on the setback. Was there any reasoning on that? Was it just aesthetic? Was it safety? What was the reason for the 2,000-foot setback?
That's a really great question. That's something I should have touched on. Our understanding, I don't know because I wasn't involved in, of course, writing the amendment to the code. My understanding from what I've heard from the county is that it was intended to protect county property, specifically the fairgrounds, from oil and gas development. But it then sort of ballooned from there into protecting all types of outdoor activity areas from all types of energy resources. So the application of it in this sense is not exactly matching its original intention, as far as I understand it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I certainly support it one way or another as well, whether it's written or it's resolution. So do you need our
Sure. Chair Medina.
Yes, go ahead.
So this is Brooke, and so the question in front of the group is, I want to ask the question, does city council members approve moving the small solar system facility resolution forward to full council?
Committee members,
Good.
Councilmember Murillo.
I support. I would just ask that if we haven't already notified the county commissioners that we're bringing this, that we do so. So I would prefer a letter, but I also am a little indifferent on if it's a resolution. It just, if everyone's on board, feels like just making sure that there's, as much communication on this as possible.
Certainly.
No, I certainly agree with you to get more support. Yeah, I'm certainly good to move it forward. So I think, if you have some time or, council members that also have connections with some of the commissioners to reach out and get support from that side as well, just because I think it will help overall.
Yes. Makes sense.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Sundberg and Nicole for the presentation.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Chair Medina. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any miscellaneous matters for consideration? Being none.
None.
Any topics for next month?
Next month will most likely be updates from our boards and commissions that provide their annual reviews for this committee. So we'll be working on that to bring those forward for October. And then our final meeting will be in November. And that will most likely be a summary of efforts, and there may be a project or two. I just haven't looked out that far.
Okay. Committee members, any questions?
Nothing else.
No questions. I might have a training conflict with that. Are we still doing it on the 26th, or did we move it?
This is for October. Is that what the month we're talking about, Councilmember?
Yeah.
It's still October 26th.
Yeah.
Yes, currently.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, that's all on my end. So.
And Chair Medina, if I can add, we are also planning on bringing the bench policy to the next policy committee meeting as well for discussion.
Okay, thank you. All right, we can certainly look into the date if we need to see about changing that. We can kind of shoot out some dates.
We can do that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or concerns? We'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, y'all.